No offense to G2, he was great. We have saved the best inspiration for last. Yamini's going to come up. Now, you know you're in the Silicon Valley, that even when you come to a charity event, the inspiration is full stack. We had inspiration at the infrastructure level at Cisco and G2. Now we got inspiration at the application level with Yamini. So now you know you're at the Valley. But, you know, I can go give a 2-minute introduction of Yamini and say a lot of good things, but I will be then wasting 2 minutes of you hearing from her on what a great inspiration she is and the story that she has. So rather than telling you all the things about her, except I will say that she's a great leader who runs a $25 billion market cap company, one of the coolest companies in the world, from my opinion. I've respected her a lot. And more importantly, she's a terrific person. So let's hear from Yamini rather than me talking about her. Let's invite Yamini Rangan on stage. Great to have you. Please have a seat.
We just have dinner coming, so we're stopping the dinner from coming, so we just have to like go fast.
There's a lot of good food for thought from you. They're going to digest a lot from you before we get to dinner. Now, how many of you have heard of Udmalpet? Okay, there's about 7 people in the room.
I want to meet you all.
Yeah, I want to meet all the people. Let's take a picture of all the people who raise their hands, right? I want to start the story today in Udmalpet. That's where Yamini is from. I want to know, how was it growing up in Udmalpet, which is near Coimbatore, by the way, if you do ChatGPT on it. How was it growing up in Udmalpet in kind of an environment like that, and how did it shape you? What did you learn? How did it shape you?
Yeah, it is not on the map, so don't even go look for Udmalpet on the map. It is not on a map. It's a small rural town. Is about like 60 kilometers from Coimbatore, which is the nearest larger city. And I grew up in Udmalpet in the 70s and the 80s, giving away my age. And it was an agricultural town. And pretty much everybody was either in cotton, growing cotton, and sending it to Tirupur, which has become a world-famous place for sending fabrics. And then it was rice and sugarcane. And I grew up in the super small town, and it was my sister, who is like 2 years older. She lives here now in Menlo Park, and myself. And it was very stereotypical, 70s, 80s India. The only thing is, like, the school that I was going to, it was growing with us. So when we started, it had like 5 up to 5th grade, and then by the time we kind of like moved into middle school, it grew to 8th grade, and then it decided to stop. And so they decided that they were not going to like have anything over 10th grade. And so the whole conversation in our family was, how are you going to finish your high school? And my sister said, okay, I'm just going to go off to Chennai because I want to go to a big city. And I told my mom that I'm not going to go to anybody's house. I won't go to boarding school. So the conversation in the house was a lot about where we would finish school.
Wow.
And my dad, and I used to hear this conversation between my mom and dad. And my dad would be like, it's okay if she doesn't, go to a great school. And my mom is like, absolutely not. She needs to get a great education. She needs to get out of this place. She needs to be independent, and we got to find a way. And so these conversations would happen a lot, and finally my mom decided that she was going to move to Coimbatore. You know Coimbatore.
Of course.
Your roots are from there. And so she moved to Coimbatore so that I could finish my high school education there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's talk about your mom. I've heard you talk about it. I had the pleasure of meeting her also. And you've said this, that your mom was such an inspiration that we talk about empowering dreams as the thing, as empowering your dream. And you've said that, your mom used to bring clippings of, the first woman who climbed Everest, or the first woman who was a pilot, just to inspire you guys. Tell us the story of your mom.
Yeah, look, the story is that my mom actually grew up in Mumbai. And she grew up in a big city. She worked for the Reserve Bank of India, had gotten arranged marriage to my dad and moved to this deep south little place. And so she had this whole dream for herself, and she couldn't fulfill that. And therefore she looked at the two of us and she said, yes, I have 2 daughters, but I want both of them to be exceptionally well educated, economically independent, and always stand up for themselves. So her dream was for us to get an incredible education. And so I know that she's an incredible cook. She lives with us. She still cooks for us. She's an incredible cook, but she fed us ambition. And anytime there was any news clipping about the first woman who was a lawyer that won a case, the first doctor who did something impressive, the first person who climbed the Mount Everest. Every one of these things would become dinner table fodder for us. And she fed us this ambition, and she believed in our ability. We had no right. I was in a small rural town that is still not on the map in India. We had no right to dream big, but she believed in our ability to dream big. And I think it's her belief that is what has been like a fodder for inspiration for my whole life.
That's an awesome. Feeding us ambition. That is such a great line. That's such an awesome line. That's something I'll remember. Now, while you were growing up, just going back to education, anybody else influenced you in your life apart from your mom in your early life, Yamini?
Look, I think like lots of inspiration. My grandfather was an inspiration. Before we had organic farming, he was an organic farmer. This was 1950s and 1960s. He'd gotten a small plot of land, and he went into agriculture, and he was an organic farmer. And he also became vertically integrated. You talk about full stack. He was a full stack organic farmer because he started with sugarcane and rice, and then decided that in order to do organic farming, you couldn't use any of the chemical fertilizers. So he actually used farm products and animal products to build like natural fertilizers, and he did that. And he was so successful, and he found that he didn't have any place to welcome visitors into this little town. So he actually built a lodge and a restaurant. Wow. So he's very vertically, he's exceptionally entrepreneurial. And one of the things that brings us back to OSAAT, that I'll tie it back, is that he had an exceptionally successful career in this very small town, being an agriculturalist and an innovator in that. And by the time he was 50, he was done.
What age?
He was done.
50?
At 50, he said, I'm done. And then he proceeded to give away everything that he had built.
Wow.
And by the time he passed away, he was riding a cycle, and he was actually, when he was at his peak, he had like 4 cars waiting for him. He was so happy giving away every bit of the wealth that he had created to improve the lives of others.
That's awesome.
So
that's
inspiration.
That's inspiration. That's awesome. We talk about, go-getters and go-givers and how do you transform in life. That's a great story of that.
Right.
Speaking of story, I read that when you were young, you read a lot of Nancy Drew and all that pattern matching. Tell us more.
I was really into reading, and I would look at every single book that was available. And one of my favorite genres was mystery reading, and my whole thing was trying to trick myself to figuring out the answer before the book actually gave away the answer. And so the genre was, anything and everything to do with, detective work, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys. It just continued to the point where I was in this small town, and there was one library, and I wouldn't even leave the house. I would ask my mom to go and bring books, and she would go to the market to buy something, and then she would pick 5 books and she'd bring it, to the point where I read every single book in the library. Everything had my name in the back cover. Wow. And they basically said, your daughter has read everything. So sorry, there is no more book in this little town. And so, one of the reasons why we had to get out was because I lived and tried to expand my horizon by reading and learning and trying to figure patterns that were much beyond what was available in my town.
Do you read a lot still?
I love reading. I still do. I think I always have a stack of books everywhere. I have books in my office, I have books near my bed, and I probably buy 5 books a month from Amazon, so continue to be a voracious reader.
That's awesome. Let's then expand the story, move it forward. Okay, so Coimbatore education, mom's is feeding you ambitions, you get through college, you come to the US with $150. What happened?
Yeah, there's a little story before that. So here's the thing, and this will resonate with a lot of women here and that are listening. My mom feeds me a lot of ambition. I get super into having an education and being economically independent. And I go to college in Coimbatore, and I go to an engineering school in Coimbatore. There were about 20 of us in a college of about 350 students. And literally the first year of my college, every day I got questions about why I was there. And just there's no reason for a woman to actually study engineering. You're just not going to be good at it anyway. You're actually going to get married and have kids, and you're going to give up your career anyway. Literally, this was the stereotype in India back in the 80s and 90s. And I tolerated it for about 6 months of the year. I was like, the first year I was there, okay, this is part of my first year process. I'll take all of this. And then, in a whim, month 6 of my engineering, there was this other guy who was also kind of, competing for the #1 spot. I was kind of behind him, and he said, well, you're never going to catch up to me. And I looked at him and I said, I'm going to be the best engineer in this college. And it was just this whim, because we were getting, as women, stereotyped about what the expectations society had on what we would do with our education. And on a whim, I said to him, and I said, I'm going to be the best engineer in this college. And I think at that point, I started taking myself seriously. I don't think I had grand ambitions to do something. I went to college because that is what is expected. And when I was, I had all of these very different expectations of society compared to the expectations of my mom and my parents, then I said, I'm going to do something with it. And I did. Graduate at the top of the class, and then, like you said, I just moved here.
That's great. I can't say that about myself for sure, graduating at the top of the class, but that's a different story. But I'll ask you this, doing engineering gives a set of thinking, teaches you thinking, whatever the engineering is,
Yes.
whatever it's mechanical. So tell me, how did engineering help you, kind of that degree, into how you operate later in life?
I think, it's really first principles thinking. And that's a big jargon-filled word, but it really is about how do you break down problems, and how do you solve problems in a somewhat structured way that can then scale. And honestly, I think I've moved on in my life from engineering into sales, into marketing, into customer success, and my current role. And in every one of those places, it has been about how to solve problems and how to scale once you know how to solve problems. And so it's been super helpful throughout.
No, it's great. But one of the toughest things you did, like you went from a profession like engineering, for example, like there's very few women in it. In India, obviously, there was the whole stereotype around not being engineers. When you come to America, there are very few engineers. And then you move into sales, where there are very few women.
Yes.
To sales, there are even lesser women in sales.
Yes.
So what was the catalyst to pivot from, as Larry Ellison would say, building shit to, what he would say, of selling shit, as Larry Ellison would say, right?
So you only have to do two things: build stuff or sell stuff.
Sell stuff, right?
Yeah, it's so I did move to the U.S., and it was like many of us here, one-way ticket, lots of ambition and drive, and I came here and I did a master's in computer engineering, worked in coding for a few years, and then I wanted to go to business school. Because mostly if you don't know what to do in life, you go to business school. And so
True.
I went to business school in Berkeley here, and when I got out of business school, it was right after 9/11. Nobody was hiring, and it was a fairly bleak economic, picture. And so the first job I got was at the time Siebel Systems,
Great
which
company.
is the original CRM company. And I joined their product marketing organization. And the first day that I joined, they laid off half the class. So literally laid off half the class.
This was what, 2001 or 2000?
This was 2002.
2002, the whole crash.
So laid off half the class, and then they basically said, well, you still have a job, but it's in sales. And the first thing that went through me is like, what am I going to tell my mom? First of all, she's disappointed that I'm not a doctor. And then she thought that I would somehow survive being an engineer. And now I have to tell her that I'm going to sell software? I was like, that was literally the first. And then I was like, okay, I still have a job. I need to figure this out. And I'm absolutely an introverted engineer. And part of it was now I had a sales quota. And I had an overlay sales role. And they said, here's your team. Go figure out how to sell. And I'll tell you, I did everything wrong in the first year. I tried to learn golf. Disaster. I tried to watch Sunday Night Football.
That's pretty good.
Disaster.
Not really, really.
I didn't even understand cricket. So this was a whole new sport. I had no idea what I was doing. And it was a very awkward first 5 minutes of every sales call that I just watch, and I would see if someone is going to speak, and I had no idea what I was doing. And then I said, you know what? I am an engineer. I know how to solve problems. And so I'd prepare for every sales call like an engineer would. I read 10 Ks, I read 10 Qs, I would listen to anything and everything about the company that I was meeting, and I'd prepared, with 20 different questions that were mostly insightful. And so the first 5 minutes were awkward. The next 25 minutes was really good. The early, mentoring that I got was that in sales, your job is to earn the next meeting. And that's it.
Move it forward.
That's it. And so the 25 minutes, my goal was to earn the next meeting. And I did everything possible using, everything that was not salesy. And so I think part of it is like, you have to learn what your strength is. You don't have to follow what someone else's strength is, and you just have to learn that, in my case, being an introverted engineer that could read 10 Ks and 10 Qs was my only strength, and so I started with that.
Focus on that. That's great. That's great. I want to go back to this introverted engineer. Now, it's hard for me to believe that you're an introvert, but you say that. But you have a job that requires a lot of engagement as as the CEO of a very high-profile company. So there's always this balance between the depth of relationship. I've heard you talk about you like one-on-one discussions and relationships. There's a balance between the depth of relationships you want and the breadth of expectations of people you have to meet, like this occasion, other people's. So how do you balance in relationship building between the depth and the breadth?
I think by being present. I don't think it's like, the difference between an introvert and an extrovert is that I have to go back and recharge myself after this. I have to go back and tomorrow have a quiet day in order to kind of re-engage and get the energy. That's the difference. But I think in any case, you have to be present. And I do like one-on-ones. I do like smaller group meetings because you can go deeper. You can get to know whether it's a partner or a customer or an employee. You can get to know that person at a level of depth. And you can do it at a certain scale. I just don't get energy from 200 people all at the same time. And you just have to know and recognize it. But there's part of the job where you really do need to understand the constituents that you have to serve, and you have to do it really well by being present.
It's great. It's great. Now, the one thing you said, I read something very profound you said, and I just want to bring it out here for all of us. You said that every aspiring leader has two paths in front of them, a visible one and an invisible one.
Yeah.
That's a sage line. So unpack it for us. What does it mean?
Yeah, it's a sage line. Thank you for saying that. So, we all in our lives are trying to figure out what is our career path. Where do we go next? And what do we accomplish? And what does that bring in terms of fulfillment? And the visible path is that, like me, if you start in sales and you become a VP of sales and you become an SVP of sales and you hopefully at some point become a chief revenue officer, and that's the visible path. And I think you could do that in marketing. You've done an exceptional job in marketing. You can do it in product. And there is a very hierarchical approach in terms of roles that you can have within the organization that you serve. Then there is an invisible path of leadership. And that invisible path of leadership, you just don't know where your next break or your next job is actually going to come from. And it comes from really connecting the dots across the business. So I'll give you an example. I joined Dropbox leading their business operations. And one of the things that I took upon myself when I joined Dropbox was to understand our product organization really well, understand our growth function within marketing really well, understand customer support function. It was not in my job description to do that, but the only way I was going to add value to folks was trying to connect the insights across multiple functions, and I did that. And when I did that, when a job opened up, because there's always someone leaving at the, at the higher levels of the company, I didn't even know that I was in the succession for a much bigger opportunity and a role. And that's an invisible role. A lot of folks within organizations forget that the more you do for the customer and the more you do for the company, the better your career is going to look like. And most of the time, you just have to, interview for your first role. After that, it's all about how you serve others so that roles come to you, and that is the invisible path in leadership.
It's great. Love it, love it, love it. Now let's have some fun. Okay, we're going to do a sharp shooting round.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we know the real Yamini here, the person.
Okay.
I'm going to have 10 questions. I'm going to sharp shoot these. Let's go. It's a quick round, full fun speed. Favorite movie?
Tillamullu.
Tillamullu. How many of us know Tillamullu? It's all the Tamil people. Okay, for all of those, it is Golmaal in Tamil. For all the folks in Hindi, you know,
That's
it's
right.
Golmaal in Tamil. Amul Palekar, that was made in Tamil. All right, some guy likes it there. Okay. Favorite book?
Mindset.
Oh yes, Mindset. Carol Bartz.
Yep.
Okay, anything in non-fiction? Fiction, sorry, fiction. Anything in fiction?
I haven't read fiction.
Okay, all right, Mindset, great book, great book. Rafi or Kishore?
Rafi.
Rafi, oh, okay. There's a lot
Sorry,
of...
I love Kishore as well.
Any favorite song?
Favorite song?
Rafi song?
Chaudhry Ka Chand.
Wow, Chandar Chand, very nice. You want to sing? Cash, your husband is a great singer, so we should probably have him sing it at some point in time. Okay, favorite superhero?
Wonder Woman.
Wow, Wonder Woman, okay, that's great. Okay, go to comfort food at home.
Go to comfort food at home. 2-minute Maggi noodles.
Wow.
And a glass of nice red wine.
Glass of nice
Yes.
red wine. Okay, we can do the red wine today. We don't have the Maggi noodles, I think. We can't do that today, but that's great. Favorite musician?
A.R. Rahman.
A.R. Rahman. Okay, cool, very cool. Podcast you'd always return to?
That's a hard one. There's so many new podcasters that are out there, but my recent favorite is Amy Poehler.
She's good.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Very good. Okay, one leader you'd like to invite for dinner?
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama.
Sorry.
Not Michelle. Barack. Okay.
Barack Obama for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, the people to the left of me are clapping.
I know, exactly.
The people to the right of me are not
Exactly.
clapping. So
I
think that was implied in the answer, I guess. But we'll leave it at that. One or two words. Okay, somebody says 1 or 2 words to describe Yamini. What would they say?
What would you say, Chandar?
What would I say? I would say invigorating. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah. What would the others people say?
Not invigorating.
No, come on.
I'm just kidding.
Those are 2 words, by the way. I asked for 1 word.
I think they'd say clarity and empathy.
Clarity and empathy. Okay, great. Now, this is for all the Tamil guys in the room. This is a Coke or Pepsi question. Kamal or Rajini?
You really want to get me in trouble. Okay, Rajini.
Okay,
Yes.
that was the answer.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Superstar, always. Okay, wonderful. Now, I want to come back to capstone this with what we started with. You know, education has been such an important emphasis in your life, you know, getting from where you were, from Udvalpete to now. For the students of, you know, OSAAT supports, you know, what message you'd like to share about education and the importance of it, Yamini?
Look, I think Jeetu's story was just exceptionally inspirational. There's someone that believes in you. And I think in the case of my story, it was my mom's belief that even though we were women growing up in the 70s and 80s in India, that we could dream big, that we could have big ambitions, that we could work and get those ambitions and dreams really fulfilled. And the whole empowering dreams idea really resonates. And it comes down to this: do you help someone dream big? And can you empower someone else's dream? Because that is literally the basics of what we can do. And so I'd say that the deep faith that you can show in one person or an entire school system will change lives, and it'll change lives beyond what you can imagine. Because like Jeetu was saying, it is really about how do you teach someone how to fish, which is what foundational education does. And so you introduced me to OSAAT, and it's just been incredible to hear the success that you've had so far, the ability to go beyond doing it in 1 or 2 schools to getting it to 120 schools. That scaling is exceptionally difficult. And I think this organization has done it really well. Kudos to you and the whole OSAAT team.
It's a completely wonderful. Kudos to the team. Kudos to the team. Now, just a couple of more things very quickly. Giving back is obviously important to you. Any ways you're giving back today? Any things that you're doing?
Honestly, everything in education. You know, we have...
Ding, 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 ding.
Exactly. Everything in education, because that's the core of my life has been about growing up in a small town and having the opportunities to dream big, and it's all because of the education. And so we have a small Sevalaya in Coimbatore where we have 120 kids that are mostly abandoned and are orphaned that we've been helping to get educated and get all the way up to school. I'm part of Berkeley. I went to Berkeley, so we've created a whole program for gender and equity in leadership, as well as sustainable leadership efforts. And so I think, the only way we can actually give back is by helping others believe in themselves through education.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's great through line here. Last question as we leave. There's a lot of people here, and 1 week from now, if they have to go to the water cooler and say, this is one piece of advice that I got from Yamini that was memorable. What's the one piece of advice you want to leave people with?
Wow, that's a tough one. I'd say the one piece of advice that my mom gave me, and this hopefully resonates, which is no matter what job you do, be the best at it. And this is literally the piece of advice she has given me throughout, and I've taken that in every one of my jobs over the past 30 years. Just try to be the best at the job.
Wonderful. I'll take those words to my daughters tonight. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Yamini Rangan, one more time. Right. Awesome. Much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you.